Well, once again, welcome to the Self-Awareness and Emotional Intelligence Key Competencies to Achieving Academic Success webinar presented by Dr. Carole Liske. Throughout her career, Dr. Liske has served in unique nursing roles in the clinical, community, and academic settings. She completed her doctoral research on patient advocacy and has actively applied advocacy theories to her professional activities. Carole presented her research on advocacy at the 43rd Sigma Theta Tau Biennial Convention. She also presented at the Nursing Education Research Conference sponsored by STTI and the National League of Nursing in Washington, D.C. USA about collaborative project-based online learning, where she also moderated the plenary panel of Global Nursing Education USA. Carole is scheduled for several presentations at the STTI Leader Connection in September, a presentation about an academic mentoring leadership model in an online environment, a special session about professional collaboration in a virtual environment, such as this webinar, and 2 poster presentations about Phi Gamma Virtual Chapter and STTI Next Generation Leader Task Force. A longtime civic and community advocate and philanthropist, she has served on many appointed governmental and nonprofit organizations. As a nurse leader, educator, and scholar, she shares her nursing expertise to advocate for health and wellness in diverse, vulnerable populations, and has leveraged this expertise as an active member of STTI at the local, regional, and international levels. Carole currently serves as chapter president for Phi Gamma Virtual Chapter, president-elect for WGU Honor Society, to be chartered as a chapter in July 2017, and co-chair of the STTI Next Generation Leaders Task Force. She joined Western Governors University as a graduate nursing research mentor and was promoted to MSN program manager last fall. Carole's academic management and leadership philosophy reflects her passion for student advocacy and student success. Carole, thank you very much for joining us this evening, and I'm now going to turn the controls over to you.
Thank you. It is truly a pleasure to be with all of you today. The slides are not advancing, Kim.
Okay, let's see.
You want to go ahead and do it? Oh, that's fine.
Go ahead and advance them for you?
That would be fine.
Okay.
So it's truly a pleasure joining you this afternoon and evening, depending where you are. I must say I'm very envious of those of you in the warmer climates. I'm in the Chicago area, and we've got 6 inches of snow on the ground. So if we move to the next slide, I'll share with you the objectives for this presentation. Hold on one second here. At the end of the presentation, I'm hoping that you'll understand the relevance of the International Honor Society of Nursing to your lifelong learning, your professional practice, and global health. I would like the attendees to verbalize the importance of motivational self-awareness in pursuing formal nursing education. And finally, to describe how this self-awareness and emotional intelligence will facilitate your learning, your scholarly pursuits, and professional development. Next slide, please. So just to talk a little bit about Sigma Theta Tau International, I'm kind of known as the person who's all about Sigma. Sigma Theta Tau International has been an organization that I've been a member of for a number of years since I was in my baccalaureate program. But I've become actively involved, particularly over the last decade, and really appreciate and honor the mission of the Honor Society, which is to advance world health and celebrate nursing excellence in scholarship, leadership, and service. For those of you that have been a member of Sigma, thank you for being a member. And for those of you that have not, please consider looking at joining. After your academic pursuits, especially those of you that are in graduate level work, you are able to join as a nurse leader by filling out the application and being considered for membership. Because STTI's vision is to be the global organization of choice for our nursing professionals. The organization is coming close to being in existence for 100 years. It was founded in 1922 by 5 nursing students at Indiana University. And they chose the Greek letters Sigma, Theta, Tau, standing for love, honor, and courage, because they felt that that exemplified what we are as nurses. And there are currently over 500 chapters in more than 90 countries around the world. So why would the Sigma Theta Tau be of relevance to all of us, both members and non-members alike? We can access information on the Honor Society website, and it allows us to see the bigger picture of global health care and nursing. And for me, it helps me get beyond my role as an academician, as a nurse practitioner, and look at what I am in the world of nursing and our global presence around the world. Sigma Theta Tau has achieved non-governmental organization status at the United Nations, and as such we have a voice at the table. So to have nurses in parity with other healthcare leaders around the world is truly an awesome opportunity. And because of that, we can make a difference in achieving global health and wellness goals. Now, there is a chapter at South University, and your chapter is the Phi Kappa chapter that was founded excuse me, in 2011. It's the 488th chapter established at STTI, and your current president is Laura McKay. So I encourage you, even if you are not currently a member, to reach out to your chapter leaders and participate in the organization activities. Next slide, please.
Dr. Liske, can I just interject here? I know some of our attendees may not be in the nursing programs, so I don't want you to get discouraged, you know, thinking that we're directing this specifically to anyone that's in a nursing program. Dr. Liske is just going to show examples of how becoming an officer of this organization helped her to progress through her academic role and to transition into her career. So I just want you to know that this isn't specific to nursing program.
Oh, excellent. Thank you for bringing that up. And that's exactly the next point that I was going to make as you advance the slide. The organization, again, looks at interprofessional activities because nursing couldn't make a difference without working in parity with other healthcare professionals and other professionals and business leaders around the world. So as such, with each biennium, the president of the organization provides a call to action by which the nursing members work toward achieving the healthcare goals around the world. This biennium call to action focuses on influence to advance global health and nursing. And when you think about being a part of an influencer, making a difference in your world, we look at all aspects of advocacy, policy, philanthropy, and lifelong learning, which all of you are pursuing at this point. And that's why you're joining me today. You are this part of this global community of South University. And as a student, faculty, administrator, or student advocate, you're here to think about ways that we can use emotional intelligence and self-awareness to advance your ability to be a strong and successful lifelong learner. Next slide. So I challenge you to think about your purpose and your self-awareness of who you are, because who you are when you pursue your academic pursuits has a great deal to do with your ability to not only survive in academia when you have many other family activities, particularly at this hectic time during our world of winter holidays and activities with our work responsibilities. So it's important to stop and think, why me and why now? Why am I pursuing my academic pursuits? Why does it make a difference for me to do that now and to accomplish the goals that I've dreamed of? And to that end, what are my contributions not only to my life as a professional, but also to my patients and my consumers, to my students, to my professional colleagues, to my profession, and to my community? So have you thought about your purpose? Are you self-aware of what your role is in your trajectory in your professional career? Or sometimes do you feel like you're just swirling in everything going around you, and it's sometimes hard to stop and think, you know, why am I here? And I remember many, many years ago when I was a little girl, I was standing outside my school doors before school started, and it was a fall morning, and the wind started gusting, and there was this pile of leaves in the corner between the door and the wall, and all of a sudden when the wind blew, this swirling of leaves occurred, but there was this one leaf just sitting in the middle that wasn't moving at all. And sometimes when I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed with everything going on, or when I talk to students and colleagues, I always think we want to be that leaf in the middle where we're calm and purposeful and intentional, and the swirl that's going around us is exciting rather than distracting. So when you think about your swirling environment, again, think about yourself in terms of your life and your colleagues and your profession and your community. And what can you do and what can you be to be successful in that environment? So what I ask you and challenge you to do is to be purposeful about reconfirming and reaffirming your decision to pursue your academic degree, whether it's at an undergrad level or a graduate level, and to recommit to the learning process by advocating for yourself. When you think about being on an airplane, what do they say to us if the oxygen masks fall? If you're with somebody who needs you, place the oxygen mask on yourself, because you need to take care of yourself in order to survive, in order to be energized, and also in order to help others. So you will have the most impact on your environment if you think about yourself and take care of yourself in a way that makes everything you do purposeful and strategic. Next slide, please. So I often like to bring up the concept of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you've taken any kind of sociology or psychology course, you've heard about Maslow's hierarchy, and over the years it's been challenged a bit, and there have been new hierarchies that have evolved. But I like you to think a little bit about your physiologic needs. When we get involved in school and you're working and you have commitments in your family lives as well, sometimes we do feel quite stretched, that our physiological needs, our survival needs are being challenged. Are we getting enough sleep? Are we feeling like we're able to meet our basic needs? And then we think about security and safety in an environment with a lot happening. Sometimes we don't feel safe because we're in a work environment where things are challenging us, or it may be an environment that the reason why you're going back to school, where you can move into a different type of professional setting. We like to feel belonging. We like to feel a part of something, that we are appreciated and that we appreciate those around us. We like to receive respect from others, so our self-esteem builds, and that allows us to achieve self-actualization. And by that, it means that you feel like you're really contributing, again, thinking about yourself in the environment around you. Are you self-actualized in what you're contributing to the world around you? So learning to survive is important. So let's talk a little bit about how you can survive in the academic environment. What can you do and think about in terms of Maslow's hierarchy in terms of surviving in the academic setting? So if you go to the next slide, you'll see that what I suggest is that in looking at yourself from a motivational self-awareness, in order to understand what your needs are, whether it's at the basic needs of survival all the way to self-actualization, to move up that hierarchy, to feel a sense of love and belonging, you have to stop and really be very purposeful about why me, why now, and who's with me, and are we in this together? So when you're thinking about your academic environment, when you think about Why me? Well, you joined school because there was something that propelled you. You wanted to make a difference in your world by achieving your degree in some other career, or possibly advancing the degree within your career. Why now? Well, I'm not sure there's ever really a great time to go back to school, especially when you're a non-traditional learner and you're already working. And sometimes there is impetus. It's because there's a job out there that you're really interested in. Or somebody says to you, you would be a phenomenal leader, but you need to achieve your bachelor's degree or your master's degree in order to apply for this position. But you also need to feel like, who's with me? Who's in this together? You can't feel like you're doing this alone. And when you're looking in virtual academic environments, it's important for you to identify peers in the same course, your faculty and your mentors, and individuals such as Kim Bevington, who works in the Student Success Center, because we're all here to wrap ourselves around you to be successful. And that allows you to feel like we are in this together. And it allows you to develop strong relationships with your peers. It helps you recognize when you need to ask for, and yes, it's okay to ask for support from your mentors and faculty and your support center. And it allows you to really become very aware of what your needs are, not just as a person or as a professional, but also as a student, because only you can tell us what your needs are. So, how does Maslow's hierarchy apply to your school life? So if you think about, and if you can go back to the previous slide, if you go back to the hierarchy of needs, you are kind of in survival mode, aren't you? And you're really trying to self-actualize or achieve your degree in academia. So you can be the person that has to recognize, what do you need to survive in your studies? First of all, you have to know what you're supposed to achieve by reviewing your course of study, identifying deadlines for yourself, controlling your environment. Don't let it spin around you. Be that leaf in the middle where you're not spinning, but it is spinning around you, but it's not affecting you in a way that you can't think and you can't be purposeful. When we talk about safety needs, who are the people that can support you and help you feel like you belong to this academic environment? Again, reach out to your course faculty, to your student support center, and allow yourself to enjoy your successes in your classroom. Now, success isn't always getting an A or passing the test or achieving competency in your course. Sometimes success is recognizing what you still need to learn and having a trajectory to move forward to learn what you need to learn. And ultimately, you achieve academic self-actualization because you know what you need to do to learn how to learn and to become a lifelong learner. If we can skip then 2 slides to the next slide. So again, that self-awareness has to do with not just who you are, but also how you're interacting with others. And if you understand your purpose, you can anticipate what your relationship is with everyone you meet. So in life, you'll realize that there is a purpose for everyone you meet and you intersect with. Some will test you, literally and figuratively, in the academic environment. Some will use you, and use can be okay. I think some of us, particularly in the nursing and in the healthcare field, we do sometimes allow ourselves to be used by our patients and those for whom we advocate. And some will teach you, and I contend that virtually everybody that you intersect with teaches us something. But most importantly, some will bring out the best in you, respect you, and accept you for who you are. Those are the ones that you want to keep around. But how will you recognize those people? Unless you are self-aware about what you really need, how will you be able to identify those people? So becoming self-aware of what your needs and those aspects of your world that you need support in, that's how you can truly identify those people that can bring the best out in you and can support you through this journey, particularly in your academic journey. Next. Now, emotional intelligence plays a major role in our ability to succeed not only in the workplace, but in working with and dealing with family members, and for the purposes of this presentation, to survive in academia. Again, self-awareness helps you understand how it is you are reacting, and it allows you, it gives you the control to self-regulate your reactions. And by doing so, you really develop a stronger ability to socialize with others. Instead of possibly overreacting or underreacting, your reactions become more purposeful. And because you are not emotionally involved or over-involved, you can listen better and you can learn better, and you become empathetic to not only your environment but to the people around you. And interestingly, that allows you to have stronger motivation for what you're doing because it's purposeful, it's intentional, it's strategic. So if you think about your emotional intelligence, it allows you to be aware of your emotions, and your emotions drive your reactions. Doctors Asgen and Fishbein, preeminent psychologists and social psychologists, identified the theory of reasoned action and planned behavior. I actually used this theory underpinning my doctoral research because my research was about nurse attitudes toward patient advocacy. But this can really apply to all of us. Attitudes toward advocacy. And what the theory posits is that our attitudes drive our actions. And that makes sense. Our attitudes are founded on our values and our experience. And our experience then drives our actions and, interestingly, our reactions. So if you are aware of who you are, if you have emotional intelligence, and you understand that your attitudes drive your actions and your reactions, again, it gives you total control of how you respond to that swirling environment around you, where you can be that leaf just sitting there enjoying the people around you and learning from them instead of them affecting you in a way that distracts you. It becomes much more impactful, and your behavior not only impacts the people around you, but you allow them to impact you in a much more positive and, again, strategic way. Next. So if you think about being emotionally intelligent, what does that mean in education or in your workplace, particularly like a career of nursing where there's a lot of high energy, high emotion, a lot of fear because people are ill? When you think about self-awareness and self-regulation and emotional reactivity, and think about that in your school setting, I remember so vividly my very first paper I had to write for my doctorate. And I was sitting at the dining room table with all of my papers spread around and my laptop lit up, and I was looking up articles, and I think you can all relate to that now, can't you? And I just couldn't get started writing this paper, and I was just so emotional about it. I was thinking too much about it. I was worrying too much about it. And what interested me was that I was emotionally attached to that paper instead of intellectually attached to the process of writing the paper. And very often as adult learners in non-traditional settings, because we're being torn between so many competing expectations and things that we have to get done, we bring our emotions to the academic table. And what I challenge you to do is think about your grades as feedback, not as being judged. So if you didn't get an A, or if a paper was returned for more information, that's simply somebody asking for additional feedback. They just need a little more information. That allows you to be a very effective communicator in the scholarly setting, where you actually develop relationships with key mentors and key faculty, and you can share scholarly ideas and questions without feeling judged. It also allows you to accept diverse opinions, and most importantly, accept constructive feedback. All of this effective scholarly communication translates from the academic setting to the workplace. This isn't about being a student. It's about being a learner and a lifelong learner. So if you think about it that way, school becomes less of an emotional journey, doesn't it? So let's just say, for instance, you're writing a paper for school and you're sitting at lunch with somebody and they say to you, hey, Sally, are you still in that bachelor's program or in that graduate program, and how is it going? And then you're telling them about a current course you're in, and then your friend says to you, well, I don't really understand. Tell me a little bit more about the paper that you're writing or the project that you're working on. And you'll answer their questions, won't you? Because they're asking for a little more information or a little more clarity. But why is it when our faculty or the people evaluating us ask for questions, we become very emotional? It's like, oh my gosh, I didn't do it right. So I'm asking you to consider looking at it in ways that allows you to look at it very constructively as a scholarly conversation, so that you don't become so emotional, and that it allows you to actually learn better, because your emotions are off to the side and you can think more clearly, and you can again be very strategic in the academic decisions that you're making. Next, please. So if you think about emotional intelligence, your self-awareness and your emotional intelligence impacts everything that you do in all spheres of your influence. So your head influences your heart, but your heart also influences your head. So if something comes at you in a way that blindsides you, you need to move that reaction from your amygdala to your cerebral cortex. I know that sounds pretty biological, but sometimes all you need is about 7 to 10 seconds. So if you count to 7 before you respond or react, you have allowed your brain to process it from the fight or flight immediate reaction to a place that allows you to be a little bit more thoughtful and intentional. You will find that you can work a little more effectively with your leaders, and it enhances your ability to answer their questions without feeling judged or critiqued, and also to become much more of a leader in your workplace, because you're not emotionally driven, you're very thoughtful about what you're saying and what you're doing. So in school, if you think about the school as we go around the circle counterclockwise, we are trying to raise young people who are more successful in learning and life. Way back when I was in nursing school, we thought when we graduated with our undergraduate degree, we knew everything we needed to know about being a nurse, right? Well, that's not the case anymore. It's not the case in any of our careers. The fact is every day we are learning something new. And with the advent of technology, things are changing with such rapid speed. Innovation and technological expertise, that information is coming at us from so many different directions. We have to remain emotionally intelligent to be able to decipher what information is most relevant, what is credible, and to look at lifelong learning as a process that makes us a better person, both in our families, in our workplace, and again in our schools. So when you think about yourself in the organization, being very thoughtful and being emotionally intelligent actually allows you to tap into the human side of performance. And isn't that an interesting thought? Because what happens is, instead of thinking about yourself in the environment, you're able to think outside the box. And if you are in a healthcare field or in any type of a service industry, it allows you to deliver more effective care and service, because you're not thinking about yourself, you're thinking about others. And actually, it allows you, if you think back on Maslow's hierarchy, to achieve self-satisfaction, because you are in control of your thoughts, of your feelings, of your reactions, and ultimately of the learning process. So this emotional intelligence very much applies to who you are as students and to be a successful student. And I encourage you to stop and think about, how does this apply to you? go around this circle of emotional intelligence and self-awareness and think about, do you overreact, especially when you're really, really tired? Do you find yourself becoming a little oversensitive when somebody has a suggestion for you? And again, usually that's when we're feeling strapped and we're feeling threatened at that survival level of the hierarchy. So take a step back, count to 7 or 10 if you need to, and allow yourself a chance to have that process so that you respond in a way that you are in control without reacting but acting. Next, please. So, I leave you with the thought that knowing that your academic success, your professional success is a journey. It's not a destination. So even graduating is not the end point. It really is the beginning, because people will be looking at you to make a difference in your world. And whether you know it or not, and probably a lot of you do, your family is watching you, particularly family who didn't think that you would be able to do this because you have many other responsibilities, or people in your workplace may have been a little threatened by your going back to school because they know now that you have, and when you graduate, you will have many other opportunities opening up for you, and maybe that makes them feel a little uncomfortable. So instead of addressing or responding to maybe that discomfort, let them enjoy the journey with you. Your academic journey really becomes their academic journey, and you become a leader in driving how you react to lifelong learning and how you apply that to your family life and to your work life and again to your school life. And you'll find that your schooling will become a lot more enjoyable if you just don't take it so personally and so emotionally. And believe me, I've been there. I've lived it. So I'm not giving you advice that I read in a book. The only way that I was able to survive my doctoral work was to try to develop an emotional intelligence about it and realize that every step of the way I continued to learn and grow and become a better professional and achieved my doctoral degree. So enjoy the journey. We can't control our environments, but we can control 3 major things: how you think, how you react, and your circle of influence at work, at school, and at home. So please make sure that you seize those areas of control that you can garner, and let it work for you. Don't let it work against you. So with that, I'd be more than delighted to entertain questions or comments and anything that may have sparked your interest as I was speaking to you today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Liske. That was awesome information. Do we have any questions? We have a couple coming in already. Let's see. Sharon says, I have experienced that in my workplace, negative reactions from peers. It is difficult to overcome and understand. What can I say to these individuals?
And I assume what you're saying is negative reactions to the fact that you are expanding your academic horizons, or when you try to make a positive difference?
Yes.
Gosh, I wish I can say to you that it's easy. It isn't easy. It's always tough to do the right thing in an environment where people want to be miserable. I would suggest a couple of things. First of all, you always have to be very gracious to those people and tell them that you understand and that you're sorry they feel that way. And you wish that you could share with them your excitement about learning and changing, because usually what those people are most afraid of is change. And I don't care where you work. Everything's a changing, right? Nothing's the same from moment to moment, from day to day. And so first and foremost, don't take it personally. Sometimes, I must say, you have to find a different circle of friends. And I know that hurts. It hurts you because this was probably somebody who was very important in your life and may still be. But maybe it's not the person that you're going to sit with lunch or dinner at. Because if that person says things to hurt you, they aren't people that are building you up. And part of the learning process is learning to be very strategic about what's best for you. And that's hard to implement. But that doesn't mean that you're mean-spirited. It doesn't mean that you aren't there to help them when they need it. They may just not be the people that you turn to when you have a scholarly question. But I'll take it to another level outside of your personal feelings. It may be that they're threatened and they're a little jealous. So what I would do is I would say to them at some point when you feel comfortable, gosh, it seems like you're a little upset with me, or it seems like you are a little confused about why I'm doing this. Gosh, what can I do to tell you to do this? Because I'm telling you, it's life-altering. And I think it might really help you see the world a little differently and maybe not feeling less imposed. You know, I wanted to share something with you, and I actually wasn't sure I'd have enough time, but when I moved into my manager role in this position, the team had gone through a couple of managers because somebody left and they didn't have anybody in place yet, so there was an interim, right? And when you have a new manager, that's kind of worrisome because you don't know what their expectations are of you, and it worries you because your work is your security, correct? Well, I did a little research before I spoke to my new team, and it was about dissonance. And dissonance is a feeling of discomfort when things don't make sense to us. They talk about academic dissonance, where what you're learning in school isn't necessarily what you're seeing out in the workplace. Some of that is true. More and more schools are becoming much more workplace driven, but we want school to challenge you to think differently. If we were teaching you what you were learning in the workplace or what your workplace is, you wouldn't be learning, right? Because learning is uncomfortable. It challenges you to question your thoughts and your beliefs. So that's what your friends and colleagues are feeling. They're discomforted. They're experiencing dissonance. Now, interestingly, studies have shown that when people experience dissonance and they're and a cerebral an MRI is conducted, areas of the brain actually light up that demonstrate satisfaction and enjoyment. Well, that sounds a bit counterintuitive. If somebody's discomforted and experiencing dissonance, how could they be experiencing satisfaction? Well, what the theorists contended was they were experiencing satisfaction because the dissonance forced them to look at things differently and make a decision. And that decision empowered them because they now felt like they were in control. Isn't that fascinating? I thought it was. And so I think what we need to do in a very gracious and friendly way is challenge those people that sometimes challenge us to think a little differently and to share your joy. And the nicer you are about it and the more excited you are about it to encourage them to go back to school will really make more of a difference. Even if they tend to dismiss you, they're going to walk away from that conversation thinking about you differently because you care about them.
Very good. Thank you. We have another question from Natika. What are some tips for NP students that work and have a family to help us continue to have self-awareness?
Excellent question. I'll tell you, I think just knowing that you need to be self-aware is step one, because we get so caught up. You know, as an NP student, I am sure that you have a highly stressful career and you've got a family and demands in the family, and it's particularly at this busy winter holiday time of year. So being self-aware is the first step, but how you operationalize that is going to be different for everybody. I'll tell you what really works for me is actually, I had to do three things. One is I made a vow with myself to be a humble follower, F-O-L-L-O-W-E-R, to be a humble follower. I'd always served in many leadership roles, And I realized that unless I was, king of the world, I was always going to be responsible to somebody else and accountable to my organization. So I had a boss, and I always needed to be a humble follower. And that kept my ego in check, but it also allowed me to look at things a little differently and a little less hurriedly, because I was being more thoughtful, I was listening more, and I was thinking more about how I might want to act and react a little differently. The other thing that I would strongly recommend is seriously that 7-second rule. You may want to think of a song that you like and hum it and measure it out for 7 to 10 seconds. That works remarkably well because you become less reactive. The other thing that I will tell you is there are times when you just need to back away from it all and give yourself a little fun, where you have to set your things down, whether it's your school work or you have to leave work by a certain time, just so you can get home and find a little enjoyment. We really do tend to deprive ourselves of joy because we get so caught up in those swirling leaves. And I challenge you to try to be that leaf in the middle and kind of watch everything around you. The other thing that I found that I did when I drive to work is I really kept the radio turned off, and I used to try to look at things differently, things that I didn't see before, particularly during the fall when the leaf colors are changing if you're in the Midwest or in the northern climate, or if you see a little child playing with a dog in the front yard. When you're driving to and from those stressful environments, stop to see if you can find something that makes you smile, even that you might have missed otherwise. So I hope those suggestions help, Tanika.
Very good. We have Melvin that's asking, can you repeat the last, it was one of your last slides where you said the things that we can handle are how you think, how you react, and what was the third one?
Oh, thank you, Melvin. What we can control is how we think, how we react, and you can control your circle of influence. And that kind of speaks to the very first question I had about what do I do when people around me aren't supporting me or are making me feel bad. You can control that circle of influence at work, at school, and at home. And when I first started in academia, I was teaching in a community college. And as you know, much like South, much like the university where I teach in at WGU, we support primarily non-traditional students that are working full-time, have many responsibilities, are looking at possible career changes. And one of the things that happens when you go back to school, especially if you're a first-generation collegian, or if you're the first person in your family to go back to school, that threatens people even in your family, the very people that love you the most. And since I was teaching nursing, one of the things I would first tell my students is you have to stop swearing in your environment, even at home, because one of the things that happens is when you're in the workplace with a patient at your bedside and something goes wrong, what's usually the first thing that comes out of our mouth? Sometimes it's a swear word, right? Because it's like, oh, shoot, or whatever, or possibly worse. So I would share with them that I want you to start practicing using other words like shoot or oh my goodness. And it kind of sounds silly, but they would do that. And the family started noticing it. And one of my students was actually belittled because they were told that they were changing. And so I felt so badly because she was crying when she came to clinical the next time. And I said to her, that's okay, because they're going to find that you're doing it authentically for the right reasons, and explain to them why you're doing it, because you're moving into a profession where that kind of swearing isn't going to be acceptable when you're caring for somebody who's worried about their life. And you have to be emotionally intelligent in that they can't see you panic because you're there to support them. So we can control that circle of influence at home, at work, and at school, but that doesn't mean you can't be gracious and loving and supportive of them. It doesn't mean that you become haughty or think you're better than them. It just means that you're changing, and sometimes they just have to accept that because they will see that it's a very authentic process. you're doing it for the right reasons, and interestingly, very often they start changing too.
Thank you. I just want to interject. I picked up one of my son-in-law's sayings. He says, "Oh, my Lanta," and I use that quite often. So
Yes.
feel free to use it if you like.
And that's so true. And you know, and I think that the thing that's interesting about that, when I forget to do that, but when I do it more consistently, when you use words that are less inflammatory, even in your own head, you react differently. So if you start doing that as well, if you get frustrated with something, you'll find that your frustration level will feel less because you kind of start laughing at yourself for using silly terms, and all of a sudden this humor comes into what could be and may very well be a very stressful situation.
That's exactly right. You kind of just stop in your tracks sometimes and go, "Oh, I crack myself up."
And you know, that self-humor, don't discount the importance of self-humor. And you know, that's one thing I didn't bring up, but I really do try to be silly sometimes, and you know, my kids just, they get, your grown children just like, oh my goodness. But sometimes you just need to find something that you can be really silly about or think about, because that really lightens your spirit and it takes the seriousness to a different level. It allows you, again, to be emotionally intelligent, to be self-aware, to laugh, to smile, and to think more clearly.
Awesome. And this leads into a very serious question that Justina has for us. And as an academic counselor for a couple years of the MSN programs, I understand exactly where she's coming from. She says, why is it difficult to get some nurse practitioners to precept nurse practitioner students? Is it true that nurses eat their young?
Wow. You know, unfortunately it is. But we are seeing that change dramatically. There's been a tremendous amount of attention in the nursing literature and research about horizontal and lateral violence. I think it really goes back to the slide about Maslow's hierarchy. When people, especially nurse practitioners, what happens with FPs, NPs, you know, everybody that's working in the clinical setting, they are combining both the medical model and the nursing model, because nursing, I won't get into a whole explanation of that, but what it is they are exceptionally busy, and they feel the pressure of the patients that they are taking care of. And it really is terribly sad and unfortunate that they don't bring people into the learning process, because I found when I stopped and took a giant step back and brought students into my world, even though it took a little more time to discuss something, it became a much more enjoyable experience. And what you'll find is those are probably the people that you don't want teaching your students anyway. But somehow you need to break down some of those barriers with them to let them know how important they are to the learning experience for these students, and how they can truly make a difference in that next generation of NP. And if you can capture their heart and their spirit, just one person at a time, it will make a difference. But you have to appeal to them in a way that isn't offensive, because it's hard. It's very hard, and it's all about being very strategic in what you say, and exceptionally gracious. But nursing is a very highly stressful environment. You know, Melvin can probably attest to this. I don't know what career he's in, but it's primarily female gender, and we tend to be more emotional, and we tend to be more reactionary. And again, I'm not trying to be politically incorrect here, but the fact is that we're women, and we're multitaskers, and we do a lot of things. So nursing, by its very nature, is kind of ripe for that type of a reaction. So we just have to appeal to the emotional intelligence of everybody, and see if we can't encourage them to want to give to that next generation of leaders, whether it's in nursing or any profession.
Very good. And Carole says, I had to leave a work environment that was toxic and non-supportive of my decision to go to NP school. I am happy I did and am now in a role that is great. And I think that just ties back to one of the previous questions about how do you handle a difficult situation if you have negative people around you with the choices that you're making. So.
Oh, absolutely. Carole, I agree with you wholeheartedly. It was probably an exceptionally challenging decision to make, but once you made it, you look at yourself and say, why didn't I do this sooner? I remember I left a very challenging work environment that was, by all counts, my dream job, and it was devastating to me, but it was not the right environment. And I remember several months after I left, I'm still very active in my alma mater, my undergrad alma mater, and we have these summits every spring. And the woman that came to speak was, I believe at that point in her early 70s, but she talked about going back to med school in her late 30s. It was a dream that she had always had, but everybody kept saying to her, you're a woman, you're a wife, you're a mother, you can't go to med school, some of the old way of thinking. But she said something, and this was almost, this was almost 7 years ago, and I remember this phrase: if something isn't right, working harder at it will not make it right. And I'll tell you, that was it made a huge difference in my life, because we, especially in the nursing profession, we're fixers, right? We're caretakers, and women, we fix everything. Everything has to be fixed and taken care of. And so what happens is we keep thinking that we can fix this, we can make it right. And the fact is that when you're very thoughtful, when you're very self-aware, when you use emotional intelligence, you will realize, as Melvin just asked me to repeat, that you can control your circle of influence. And sometimes it's making a very tough decision. But as Carole just pointed out, it was the best decision she ever made. And we go to school to change our circle of influence, don't we? Isn't that what we want? Don't we want different people influencing us? So don't hold yourselves back because somebody is trying to make you feel bad. Allow yourself to spread your wings and fly, and really realize, self-actualize this academic experience so that you can self-actualize and be at the top of that pyramid in the workplace. But only you can control that, unless you let others control it for you.
Very good, and that leads us right into Bobby Jean's question. What would you suggest to start building a support circle if you don't have a solid foundation or frame?
It just starts with one person. It just starts with one person. I am a very strong believer of having a mentor. Now, mentoring, and again, there's a tremendous amount of research on mentoring. There's formal mentoring and informal mentoring. There has got to be somebody in your circle of influence that believes in you, is excited about you, and it may not be somebody at work, it may not be somebody older than you, it may likely be somebody younger than you, a child who is so admires what you're doing, Mom and Dad. You just don't know who that person is. Find one person. But what's interesting is you also have to seek out organizations. So whether, like in nursing, Sigma Theta Tau International, the Honor Society, those are people who care about nursing and those people in nursing. So find a professional organization where you can intersect with and have a relationship with people of like mind. But you have to be the one to do the research on that. I'll share a little personal story that as I was sharing with you earlier, I had that situation at work where I had to make a very tough decision to leave a position that I had thought was my dream job, like the pinnacle of my career. And after I left there, I felt very, 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 very badly. And the Sigma Theta Tau convention was coming up several months later, and I seriously thought about not going because I was a little, everybody says, oh, what do you do? Where are you working? And I didn't feel like I had anything to say that sounded impressive. And I pulled myself up by my bootstraps and I realized, you know what, this is really crazy. I'm my own worst enemy. These are the people I want to be associating with, right? I need to talk to them. They need to build me up. I need to find out, where do I go from here? And that convention made a huge difference in my world, because I met with people who talked about competency-based education, which I had not heard about, and that's where I work now. I talked to somebody who said, be very proud about being what you did. That was a very tough thing to do, and I walked out of there with my head held high instead of my head hanging down. But I'll tell you, walking into that conference was tough. And I actually had to act the act before I walked the walk. But it worked. And I smiled. I did a lot of smiling. Even though my heart was breaking at times, I did a lot of smiling.
Very good. And that reminds me of my own personal story where when I think I had just started my master's program, and I was working full-time. I lived an hour from work and school, going to school full-time, and I had a 2-year-old and a 2-month-old, and I was a single mother. And I just felt like I wasn't doing anything well. I just felt like I was spread so thin that I couldn't catch up with myself, and I couldn't accomplish anything to the best of my ability. And I remember telling that to somebody, and their response was, you're being way too hard on yourself. You're doing 3 things well that many people can't do one of those well. So so we have to, not be so hard on ourselves and really look at what our accomplishments are. And, if you fall down, get back up and keep going. So
that is a very, very important point. And I actually was thinking about it as I was preparing for this, and I'll tell you what, when self-awareness doesn't mean you beat yourself up, because that's how I used to do it for many years. I'd always think back on what I should have, could have done, right? How I should have done it differently. Well, that's entirely different than being self-aware and thinking, what can I take from this experience to do something differently next time? But again, it's very strategic and purposeful and intentional. That's an entirely and we can very well be our own worst enemies. And please don't do that to yourself, because you are in the upper percentage of people that are trying to make a difference in your world, that are purposefully going back to school to make a difference in yourself and in the people that you influence. So hold yourselves and your heads high, because that is not an easy thing to do. And please, you're right, Kim, do not beat yourselves up. We aren't perfect beings, and that's what's really important, is we will never achieve perfection. And that's part of that whole piece of learning to learn, because when you're in school, we're trying to learn more. We will never be perfect, but that's why you're going to school. If you knew it all, you wouldn't be here, right? So don't beat yourself up for not knowing. Instead, applaud yourself for learning.
very good. And real quick, Danielle says she uses Oh My Jelly, and I like that one.
I love
Melvin, what do you think? What do you do if this is a new field? I'm not sure where he's going with that, but
well,
Melvin,
if you're talking about learning in a new field, well, first of all, again, you have to be a very humble follower, because when it's like going from 8th grade to freshman year in high school and senior in high school to college, all of a sudden you're the low man on the totem pole. I would watch and learn everything I can, and again, join professional organizations, because those are the people that you want to network with, that will fill you in and allow you to have a contact when you might need it. And it may just be that when you're a student, you serve on a professional organization and you say, you know what, I'll chair this particular event, and when you need a letter of recommendation, where are you going to go? That's the organization, right? So you'd be surprised how those little things mean a lot, and can really make a difference in allowing you to access an opportunity that you would not have otherwise known about.
Okay, very good, which leads to the perfect lead-in into our opportunities here at South University for our students. If you haven't been on the Connections page yet, there are all different types of student groups, student organizations that you can join there that may be general or may be specific to your program. one of the opportunities that I wanted to talk to you about is on your screen now. It's called Keeping It Real Classroom to Career Badgefolio. This is a career readiness certification program that we offer all of our students. There's no fee for it. There's no time frame for it. You go at your own pace. It's not a requirement that you complete the whole thing. You can complete pieces of it. So all of our students have the opportunity to participate in this. There are 11 virtual badges that you complete with corresponding exercises. The exercises include a personality assessment, 3 career reflection badges that coordinate with career-related classroom assignments, 3 career experience badges. These involve participation in career-related events that take place outside of the classroom. So since you attended this event today, you could then go into your career readiness badgefolio and reflect upon your experience and earn your badge. And then there are 3 career planning badges, a resume, a career exploration, and a networking badge, and then finally a job search badge. Students will receive a pin in the mail as they complete each badge, signifying the accomplishment. So upon completion of all 11 badges, the student will receive a career readiness certificate in the mail and recognition on your transcript of completing the program. Students will also have the opportunity to build an e-portfolio. So if you'd like to get started or want information, please contact me, and my contact information is there. So another way that you can earn some of these badges is by engaging in some of the student organizations and societies that we have available. Maybe you become a moderator for our blogs or our connections pages, or maybe you become one of the officers like Dr. Liske has become at STTI. You can become an officer, and then you can earn a badge by reporting back, reflecting on your experience in that organization. So let's see, we had one more comment. She says, thank you for your advice. I have had family, friends, and coworkers degrade my continuing education, with a few of them making the comment of, you are just going to be a mid-level provider, and this gets my goat. I am going to be a practitioner with more education and OJT than most doctors coming out of school. How do you deal with people calling you a mid-level provider?
Wow, wow. Again, it's that circle of influence, but when it's family and friends, sometimes it's hard to back out of that. Actually, we're all mid-level providers in many respects. If you can kind of think about the fact that what we're doing is we are helping people transition between opportunities of healthcare, right? So I try not to. They're just puffing, and they're trying to make you feel badly about pursuing something that you're looking forward to. And the best thing you can do is do exactly what you said you're going to accomplish, because the proof will be in what happens in the next 2, 3, 5 years. Smile at them and thank them and say, I'm going to be the best doggone mid-level provider that ever existed, and then just smile and walk away. Because, you know, you can't argue with people that are bringing up comments that aren't even arguable, you know, and so don't give it credence. Just smile and give them a big hug and say, you make me laugh, you know. Sometimes
Melissa, sometimes you'll find that that's jealousy, and it's interesting how maybe a year down the road or 2 years down the road, as they watch you, they're jumping on the bandwagon and following right in your footsteps. So, you know, be prepared for that conversation also. So,
absolutely.
And next question, Leslie, could you repeat where that program is located on the South University website? If you want to reach out to me, my contact information is on the screen now. I'll get you started with that program because I have to launch the badge to you. So I'll explain it to you. I'll show you how to get logged in, and then we'll get you a badge launched. If you don't get my information taken down there, on the connections page, which is right on your home page, you can reach me through there. So feel free to reach out to me at any point. Do we have any other questions? I know we've kind of gone over time, but I think this was a very, very great presentation tonight. Dr. Liske, I appreciate your time, and I think I speak on behalf of all of our attendees that we appreciate you're spending your time with us and providing us with this wonderful information. Do you have any closing remarks, Dr. Liske?
You know, just know that what you're doing is the right thing. Know that it will make a difference in the world, and that whatever you do, people are watching. And so the best thing that you can do is set the example and be the trendsetter. And if you have any other questions, particularly those of you in nursing with Sigma, again, reach out to your feel free to ask Kim for my email address. If you have any other questions, reach out to your Sigma organization and look for those professional organizations. Those really allow you to look at your world and your career or your future career a little differently. And that's what's important and very helpful, because you start to feel like you're a part of something bigger than yourself. And that's really what matters.
Okay, thank you so much. And thank you to all of our attendees for spending time with us tonight. It's always a great opportunity and pleasure to actually spend real live time with you. So thank you, and watch for other webinars. You're welcome to attend any of them. So everyone have a good evening. I'm going to stop the recording now, and please remember that you will be receiving a copy of this recording also.